Okay, so let's dive in to the discussion of the book. Now, there are, as I mentioned before, there are four big sections, right? I think the first section talks about designing energy transition. And then the second section talks about excesses, externalities, and hijacking of the energy transition. On the other hand, the fourth part talks about civil society, the relationship between civil society and energy transition. Outside these four parts is your introduction of the book, right? And I think I pick up a lot of interesting points in your introductory remarks. Before talk about some of the interesting point is the key word of this book is energy transition, right? So I think my question is, how should we understand energy transition, right? Um, um, in other words, what is the definition of energy transition, right? Should we understand it this way or that way? And why do we have the element of justice in energy transition, right? Because as the title of this book mentioned, right? Transisi Energi Berkeadilan, right? Just energy transition. So please talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so when we're talking about energy transition, we're trying to shift like the source of our energy. Basically, we're very much depending on fossil energy today, and it's very polluting. Basically, uh, it emits so much carbon, and it has a problem right now, like to worsen the climate crisis that we have today. And I think we're nearing the point of no return in regard to the climate crisis. That what make it that's what making it like super important today when we're talking about world global level crisis. We need to like shift our energy source from the fossil focused energy source to the more renewable and clean one. And I think the in recent years, like development in solar panels to development in wind turbine, they have like a very rapid development in these areas. But in regard to what's happening in Indonesia, and I think it's happening as well in many parts of the world, there's the interest from the fossil fuel like business companies. I mean, basically, when we're talking about these business companies that involved with the exploration and, of course, the selling of these fossil fuels, they are the biggest companies in the world, and of course, the 10 biggest companies in Indonesia, of course, is fossil fuels and energy companies. We're having like when we're talking about energy transition, we have to like we have to address the business interests that comes with it, and it won't be like a good and well mannered negotiation. There will be like a conflict, where will be like a struggle, there will be like people trying to defend their like position. And when we are talking about this process, this will also involve a lot of lobbying on the government side. Like we're talking about something that not only involve the involve the current climate crisis, but also involve a big amount of money. And like when we're talking about this as well, we're talking about a big amount of money, a business interest that as the like right now when we're talking like a big company that already back the energy transition, Shell, and also many other oil companies, they're trying to back out from their like green commitment. And I don't know, in Indonesia, I mean, when we're talking about energy transition, we're talking about something that needs to be done to address the current climate and environment crisis, but we're also talking about something that has a business implication, that has the implication to big business here. But we are also talking about something that also has a big implication for the people, because we're talking about in Indonesia, there's of course energy scarcity in some parts of the country, and there's people are still trying to like making grid, if even the coal power plant is not available in some of the smaller islands in Indonesia. So we're talking about so many issues. So the first thing that we want to talk about energy transition is something that is related to the climate, but suddenly we're talking about something that has has multiple implications for many sectors. Of course, the biggest one that will be implicated is business, but from business, basically, it involves so many parties, so many groups, the governance, the politics, and of course the communities. So I think there's something to talk about. There's just too much to unpack when we're talking about this very thing. So I think I don't know if that answers it.
Indeed. I mean, the notion of energy transition itself is already big, and you add the justice dimension to it. It just add another homework. All right. Probably another aspect in your introductory remarks that I find very interesting is this. In order for us to avoid the point of no return, we have to transition, right? But as you just said, some places in Indonesia are still in the process of transitioning to fossil fuels, right? And that's a problem. So we want to transform from fossil fuels to renewables, but some of the parts in Indonesia are still in the process of transitioning fossil fuels. They don't have fossil fuels, and they need those resources to be able to develop, right? Talk about that complexities.
Yeah, I mean we're having like a multiple transitions all at once.
Yes.
Transition to fossil fuel, while at the same time transition to like the renewable energies. And the problem that we have when we're talking about transition to fossil fuels, right now we're having like this peraturan pemerintah PP, the government regulation in 2022, that like that shows the commitment of the government to halt all of the new coal power plant opening. But right now the new coal power plant opening is mostly on like the industrialization areas, and there's still being like uh that has the new this new regulation still allow the opening of new coal power plant in this industrialization areas, basically the captive power plant. And basically we're talking about, yeah, I mean we're talking about people, we're talking about community still. We are talking about so many communities in Indonesia. There's many of them are still not connected to the power grid. Basically, they are still not having like a constant power electricity source. And at the same time, we're also talking about not only people transitioning to the like fossil energy source, but there are also in Indonesia we're talking about how there's a oversupply in energy, and that oversupplies also makes some important actors in the government like reluctant to like allowing people to the communities, people in the urban areas. There right now like some people, maybe not very many of them, but some people are like they're thinking of transitioning like to the solar panel, right? But like the PLN or an energy basically, or electricity state company are doing so many things in their capacity to like make people not to like they're trying to like just they do not want they want to like sell electricities, and people want to like produce their own electricities by buying solar panels. So that's its own problem. So we have so many multiple problems here, We're talking about what we're talking about people trying to in rural areas of Indonesia trying to transition into the uh, fossil fuel. We're not only talking about them, we're also talking about industrialization area in Indonesia right now. So basically there's the currently newly emerging industrial part of Indonesia, where when we're talking about all of this, when we're talking about captive power plant, we're talking about the new industrialization regions in Indonesia. We have like currently Morowali. I mean, the Prabowo have already talked about when he's campaigning, they want to have like more exploration and helirization, like the downstreaming of the nickels, the downstreaming of other minerals. And for that matters, the government will need to allow more coal power plant in these areas. And the current areas where these power plants are being established, like Morowali and also it's on Central Sulawesi and also on North Maluku, in Weda, there's a power plant, fossil fuel power plant, coal power plant basically. And the problem is when they want that industrialization center to run, and according to their time scheduling, it won't be feasible for them to like waiting for like uh a renewable power plant or energy source being established there. Well, right now when we're talking about these industrialization centers, these industrialization centers like employ so many people from around the areas. When we're talking the industrialization centers in Sulawesi, it employs people from the South Sulawesi, from the like North Sulawesi, from every part of the region. The people who were like having a hard time finding jobs after they're graduating from the high school, from the from the universities, they're right now having like opportunities to work for stable employment in these industrialized parts of these countries. And the government cannot I mean, these industrialization centers would not have like power supply without the government allowing for the fossil fuel to still run in these areas. So we're talking about not only one or two kind of transition trying to in the process of ongoing right now, but we're also talking about how like there's a multiple interests, the interest of big business intertwined with the interest of people trying to find jobs in their everyday life. So basically there's so much things there's being involved in this matter right now. I mean, that's why when I'm trying to writing an introductory text for this book, I have a really hard time to like account for every of the writing that's compressed in this book, because there's just so many topics. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. The plurality of topics in the book is a challenge for you as an editor, but I personally think you did a very good job at it. Now, again, another interesting point that I pick up from your introductory section is that energy transition, especially for us in developing worlds, is a big gamble, right? Maybe it's a huge gamble. Not to mention that you talked about JETP, right? Where basically we are having a loan for transitioning. But again, right, maybe we're using taxpayers' money from other countries, from the global north, and then other countries from the global south are using that money, but there's no guarantee that we can successfully transition and we can successfully develop with very low carbon emission, right? So let's talk about that. Please talk about that. Talk about that gamble that we have.
yeah, there's so much gamble in the very term of energy transition. I mean, there's a gamble of the people, there's the gamble of the like business people, big business interests. I mean, their gamble is whether the government will like try to restrain their operation or not, whether they're still being allowed to like explore, export, and of course trying to like supplying energies or not. But there's also the interest of the people who are like communities when they're not having like when we're talking about energy security, of course we're talking about jobs, right? We're talking about like factories continue running when we're having blackouts, continue factory cannot keep running, and when we're having like we have to transition, when we have to shift and we're not thinking about the availability of energy right now. We'll be talking about unemployment. We will be also talking. This is another facet of the problem. We're also talking about, for example, our shift in mobility. We can also talk about that, or shift in mobility. Like right now, we have like so many supplies of electric vehicles, mainly from China. Usually, they are right now like leading in these sectors on the electric vehicle industry, and we're talking about the electric vehicle transition. It will involve so many layoff in the like the mechanic in the mechanic jobs, because we're talking about a vehicle that has no like some that's whose components is very minimal compared to like to the EC vehicles, fossil fuel vehicle, basically the fossil fuel vehicles. And like when we're talking about that, and we just see our surrounding here in Indonesia. There's bengkel everywhere. I mean, informal like mechanic everywhere. These people would lose their job if the transition just goes smoothly without. I mean, if we suddenly everyone or most of us are using the electric vehicle, suddenly people are not. People will these mechanics will have no one who will be coming to their shop. And we're also talking about even the manufacturing jobs in these areas. When we're talking about the electric vehicles, especially the bike and the motorcycle, they just come and do not need to be manufactured. They come straight from China, and that means this Chinese company will not have the necessity to open up of manufacturing factories here. So basically, many jobs are lost. Many jobs are lost. Many jobs are lost because of the energy, the concern about energy security. Many jobs are lost because of the like uh I mean the components, the electric vehicle components parts. Many jobs will lost. Many jobs also will lost because of the big business will like having their revenue needs to be cut. But also on the other hand, when we're talking about this big business, they're trying to lobby the government and all. They're trying to lobby using this argument that the argument that workers are depending on them, people are depending on them. So I think that's also what explains why Bahlil's statement was that this cannot be rushed. I mean, there's just so many different interests in this transition process. There's so many dimensions, and that's why when we're talking about what's comprised in this book, this is something that I have a hard time trying to like sum in in the introductory text is basically just 1,500 words. It's too short for everything. Everyone is talking about something that they are expert on. And another problem that we have with the book is there's no peer reviewer yet, because all these issues, they need different reviewers, of course, because every of the issues need different experts who are already engaging with these issues probably for some times, and we do not have those kind of experts yet in Indonesia, and especially in the universities. So we have that kind of problems. But this book is also intended as like something to provoke the people, like to stimulate talks and conversation about energy transition. So I think even though there's something that can be improved upon when we're talking about this book, we this is still a very good start, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.